My phone buzzes at exactly 11:47 p.m., and I almost drop it when the notification pops up on my screen. New match on heatsink. The profile picture loads painfully slowly, pixel by agonizing pixel, until those familiar dark eyes stare back at me through the cracked screen of my ancient iPhone. Riker Donovan, my boss. The same man who makes my life a living hell every single day at Morrison & Associates. Fuck. I whisper into the darkness of my tiny studio apartment, frantically tapping the unmatch button like my life depends on it. But it's already too late. A message notification appears before I can process what's happening. Well, look what we have here, Jamie. My hands shake so violently I can barely hold the phone steady enough to read his words again. How did he even find my profile? I was so careful with my photos, using ones where my face was half hidden behind coffee cups or angled in shadows that made me look completely different from my office persona. I wore different clothes, styled my hair differently, even used a slightly altered version of my name. But somehow Riker knew. He always knows everything, doesn't he? The apartment feels suffocating suddenly. I can hear Mrs. Patterson next door playing her television too loud again, the laugh track from some ancient sitcom bleeding through the paper-thin walls. The radiator clanks and hisses in the corner, filling the space with dry heat that makes my skin feel tight and uncomfortable. Everything feels too close, too real, too present when all I want to do is disappear. I block him immediately and throw my phone across the room with more force than necessary. It lands on my second-hand couch with a soft thud, bouncing once before settling among the throw pillows I bought to make this place feel less like a prison cell. But the damage is already done, isn't it? The secret I've been guarding for 2 years, that I'm gay, that I've been desperately scrolling through dating apps hoping to find someone who might actually want me, is now in the hands of the one person who could destroy everything I've worked for. Sleep doesn't come easily that night. Every time I close my eyes, I see that signature smirk he always wears when he catches me making mistakes at work. That expression of barely contained satisfaction, like he's been waiting for me to slip up so he can pounce. My mind runs through endless scenarios, each one worse than the last. Will he tell HR about my inappropriate behavior? Will he fire me for some made-up reason and destroy my references? Will he use this secret as leverage to make my already miserable work life completely unbearable? I stare at the ceiling for hours, watching shadows move across the cracked plaster as cars pass by outside. The digital clock on my nightstand seems to move in slow motion. 12:17 a.m., 1:33 a.m., 2:45 a.m. Each minute stretches into eternity as anxiety gnaws at my stomach like a living thing. By the time my alarm goes off at 6:30 a.m., I've already been awake for what feels like days. I drag myself out of bed and stumble to the bathroom, catching sight of my reflection in the mirror above the sink. I look exactly how I feel, pale, exhausted, like I've aged 10 years overnight. The dark circles under my eyes are so pronounced they look like bruises. I shower with water that never quite gets hot enough, brush my teeth with hands that still shake slightly, and dress in my most conservative outfit, a navy blue button-down shirt and charcoal slacks, that make me look like I'm trying to blend into the office furniture. Maybe if I'm invisible enough, this whole nightmare will just disappear. The train ride to downtown takes 45 minutes, and I spend every second of it rehearsing what I'll say if Riker confronts me. I'll deny everything. I'll claim it's a case of mistaken identity. I'll act confused and hurt that he would even suggest such a thing. But even as I practice these lies in my head, I know they won't work. Riker Donovan didn't become the youngest department head in the company's history by being fooled by bad acting. Morrison & Associates towers over the financial district like a glass and steel monument to corporate success. I've walked through these revolving doors every morning for 2 years, but today they feel like the entrance to my own execution. The security guard, Marcus, gives me his usual friendly nod, completely unaware that I'm walking to my professional death. The elevator bank is crowded with the usual morning rush, suits and briefcases, and the low murmur of business conversations. I position myself in the back corner, hoping to disappear among the crowd, when the brass doors of the executive elevator glide open with a soft ding. Riker Donovan steps out like he owns the building, which, given his position and family connections, he practically does. He's wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably costs more than I make in 3 months, His dark hair perfectly styled, a steaming cup of what I know is his usual double espresso held casually in one manicured hand. Everything about him screams power and control and the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about money or job security. Our eyes meet across the crowded lobby, and something shifts in his expression. That familiar predatory smile spreads slowly across his face, the one that usually appears right before he tears apart my quarterly reports in front of the entire team. But this smile is different, more personal, more intimate, like we're sharing a secret that no one else in this crowded space could possibly understand. "Jamie," he says, and somehow his voice carries across the noise and chaos of the morning rush. He pronounces my name like he's tasting it, rolling it around in his mouth like expensive wine. Right on time. The words are innocuous enough, something any boss might say to an employee who arrives punctually, but there's an undercurrent to his tone that makes my stomach clench with a mixture of fear and something else I don't want to examine too closely. The way he's looking at me like he can see right through my carefully constructed professional facade to the mess of anxiety and unwanted attraction beneath. I manage a weak nod in response, not trusting my voice to remain steady. Around us, the morning routine continues uninterrupted. Coffee cups clink, elevator bells chime, conversations flow in the familiar rhythm of another corporate day beginning. But for me, everything has changed. The safety of anonymity I've relied on for 2 years has been stripped away in a single moment, leaving me exposed and vulnerable in ways I never prepared for. As I watch Riker disappear into the crowd heading toward the executive elevators, I realize that this is just the beginning. Whatever game he's planning to play, I'm already 3 moves behind, and I have no idea what the rules are. The elevator ride to the 15th floor feels like the longest 30 seconds of my entire life. I press myself into the back corner, trying to make myself as small as possible while Riker stands near the front, casually sipping his espresso like this is just another ordinary Tuesday morning. But I can feel his presence like electricity in the air, can sense him studying my reflection in the polished steel doors. Other employees filter in and out at various floors. Sandra from legal with her oversized coffee and perpetually frazzled expression, Tom from marketing juggling 3 phones and talking rapidly into his Bluetooth headset, a group of interns who look fresh out of college and terrified of everything. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that my world is currently imploding in slow motion. When the doors finally slide open at my floor, I practically sprint toward my desk, desperate to put some distance between myself and the man who now holds my biggest secret. My workspace is nothing special, a standard corporate desk wedged between filing cabinets and a window that faces the brick wall of the building next door. But it's been my sanctuary for 2 years, the one place where I felt competent and safe. That safety evaporates the moment I sit down. My computer takes forever to boot up, the familiar Windows startup sound seeming unnaturally loud in the quiet office. I try to focus on my emails, scrolling through the usual collection of meeting requests and project updates, but the words blur together meaninglessly. Every few seconds, I glance up at the executive floor visible through the glass walls above, half expecting to see Riker watching me like a hawk circling its prey. For exactly 10 minutes and 37 seconds, I allow myself to believe that maybe he'll just ignore what happened. Maybe it was a fluke, a momentary lapse in judgment that he'll pretend never occurred. Maybe we can both just move on and maintain the careful professional distance we've always kept. Then he appears beside my desk like a shadow materializing out of thin air. "Sleep well, Jamie." His voice is smooth as aged whiskey, casual and conversational, but there's something predatory lurking beneath the surface that makes my stomach flip in ways I don't want to analyze. I don't look up from my computer screen, fingers frozen over the keyboard as I pretend to be engrossed in a spreadsheet that I'm not actually reading. "I don't know what you're talking about." The words come out as barely more than a mumble, lacking any conviction whatsoever. Even I don't believe myself, so how can I expect him to? "Oh, I think you do." He leans closer, one hand bracing against my desk, and suddenly I'm surrounded by the scent of his expensive cologne mixed with coffee and something indefinably masculine that makes my pulse race. His voice drops to a whisper that only I can hear, intimate and dangerous. "We need to discuss last night's discovery." My office. Now, around us, the office continues its normal morning rhythm. Keyboards click with steady precision as my coworkers settle into their daily routines. Phones ring with the usual urgency of business calls. Conversations flow about weekend plans and project deadlines, and the mundane details of corporate life. But for me, everything feels muted and distant, like I'm underwater or wrapped in cotton batting. Riker straightens up, adjusting his tie with practiced precision, and doesn't wait for my response. His confidence is absolute. He knows I'll follow him, knows I don't have any other choice. The power dynamic between us has always been clear, but now it feels suffocating in ways it never has before. And I do follow him, because what other option do I have? My legs feel unsteady as I walk through the maze of cubicles, past coworkers who smile and nod their usual morning greetings. Sarah from accounting waves cheerfully from her desk, completely oblivious to the fact that my carefully constructed world is crumbling around me. If only she knew that her casual good morning might be one of the last normal interactions I have in this office. "Everything okay?" asks Mike from the desk next to mine, looking up from his own computer with genuine concern. "You look a little pale." "Just tired," I manage to say, forcing what I hope is a reassuring smile. "Late night working on the Morrison project." It's not technically a lie. I was awake most of the night thinking about Morrison and Associates, just not in the way Mike assumes. But the excuse seems to satisfy him, and he turns back to his work without further questions. The walk to Riker's office feels endless, even though it's probably less than 50 yards from my desk. Each step seems to echo louder than it should, and I'm hyper-aware of every eye that might be watching us. Every colleague who might wonder why the department head is personally escorting me to his office first thing in the morning. Riker's corner office is exactly what you'd expect from someone with his position and family connections. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the city skyline. Furniture that probably costs more than my annual salary. Awards and certificates displayed with calculated precision on the walls. It's a monument to success and power, designed to intimidate and impress in equal measure. He holds the door open for me with the courtesy of a perfect gentleman, but there's nothing gentlemanly about the way his fingers brush against my back as I pass through the doorway. The contact is brief, barely there, but it sends unwanted shivers down my spine and makes me stumble slightly. "Careful," he murmurs, steadying me with a hand on my elbow. "Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." The concern in his voice sounds genuine, but there's an undercurrent of something else. Amusement, maybe, or satisfaction. Like he enjoys seeing me off balance and uncertain. The door closes behind us with a soft click that sounds far too final, far too permanent. Suddenly the spacious office feels smaller, more intimate, like the walls are closing in around us. Through the glass panels that separate his office from the rest of the floor, I can see my coworkers going about their normal routines, completely unaware of the drama unfolding just a few feet away. I remain standing near the door, every muscle in my body tense and ready to flee if necessary. Flight response is definitely winning over fight at this point. All I want is to escape this room, this building, maybe this entire city if that's what it takes to avoid whatever conversation is about to happen. But Riker is between me and the exit now, leaning against his massive mahogany desk with casual confidence, his dark eyes studying my face like he's trying to read my thoughts. And maybe he's always been unnaturally good at anticipating my reactions, at knowing exactly which buttons to push to get under my skin. "Sit," he says, gesturing toward one of the leather chairs positioned in front of his desk. But I don't move, can't move, rooted to this spot near the door like my feet have grown roots through the expensive carpet. The silence stretches between us like a taut wire, heavy with unspoken tension and possibilities I don't dare consider. Riker's office feels different today, smaller somehow, more intimate, like the tastefully decorated walls are closing in around us with each passing second. The morning light streaming through his floor-to-ceiling windows casts sharp shadows across the Persian rug, creating geometric patterns that seem to shift and move as clouds pass overhead. "Look, about last night," I finally manage to start, but the words feel clumsy and inadequate in my mouth. "You blocked me." It's not a question, it's a statement delivered with the kind of flat certainty that makes my stomach drop. But underneath his matter-of-fact tone, there's something else lurking. Hurt, maybe? Disappointment. I can't quite place it, and that uncertainty makes everything worse. Of course I blocked you. The words come out weaker than I intended, lacking any real conviction. I clear my throat and try again, attempting to inject some strength into my voice. You're my boss, Riker. This is completely inappropriate. Even as I say it, I cringe internally at how pathetic I sound, like a broken record playing the same weak excuse over and over, hoping repetition will somehow make it more convincing. He moves then, pushing away from his desk with fluid grace and beginning a slow circuit around the office. Each step is deliberate and measured, like a predator circling its prey, taking his time to assess the situation before making his move. The expensive leather of his Italian shoes makes soft sounds against the hardwood floors that somehow seem louder than they should in the quiet space. Inappropriate? He raises an eyebrow, and for the first time since I've known him, he looks genuinely surprised rather than smugly superior. Is that what you call it when two consenting adults match on a dating app? We didn't match. The protest bursts out of me with more force than I expected, finally finding some fire in my voice. You found me somehow. You hunted me down. That's stalking, not matching. The accusation hangs in the air between us, and I immediately regret the harshness of my words. Riker stops moving, his entire body going still in a way that makes the hair on my arms stand up. When he turns to face me fully, his expression is unreadable. Stalking? The word comes out soft, almost hurt, and it throws me completely off balance. Jamie, do you really think I spent my free time hunting you down on dating apps? Do you honestly believe I have nothing better to do than cyberstalk my employees? His questions hit me like physical blows, each one chipping away at the narrative I've constructed in my head. I came into this office prepared for anger, for threats, for some kind of power play or blackmail attempt. What I wasn't prepared for was this genuine confusion mixed with what sounds suspiciously like wounded feelings. Then how? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. How did you find me? I was so careful with my photos, my profile information. He stops directly in front of me now, close enough that I can smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that probably costs more than my monthly rent. Close enough that I can see the flecks of gold in his dark brown eyes, the slight shadow along his jawline that suggests he shaved in a hurry this morning. Close enough that the heat radiating from his body makes me want to take a step back. But I'm already pressed against the wall with nowhere to go, because I've been on that app for months, Jamie. His voice is soft now, almost vulnerable in a way I've never heard from him before. Scrolling through profiles every night, hoping against hope that I might see yours. Hoping that maybe, just maybe, you might be looking for the same thing I am. The confession hits me like a tsunami, washing away every assumption I've made about this situation. My mouth falls open slightly, but no words come out. This can't be real. This can't be happening. What? The word comes out as barely more than a breath. You heard me. He reaches up slowly, telegraphing his movements like he's approaching a skittish animal, and cups my face in his hands. His palms are warm against my skin, slightly rough in a way that suggests he wasn't always the polished executive he appears to be now. Do you think I enjoy being an asshole to you every day? You think I like watching you flinch every time I walk into a room? I should pull away. Every rational part of my brain is screaming at me to step back, to maintain professional distance, to remember that this man holds my career in his hands. But I can't seem to move, frozen by the intensity in his eyes and the gentleness of his touch. Then why do you do it? The question slips out before I can stop it, years of frustration and confusion finally finding voice. For a moment his composed facade cracks and I see something raw and unguarded in his expression. He runs one hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up for the first time since I've known him, and the vulnerability in that simple gesture makes my chest tight. Because it's the only way I can interact with you without crossing lines I'm not supposed to cross. The admission comes out in a rush, like he's been holding it back for so long that it physically hurts to keep it inside anymore. Because every time you walk into this office wearing that vanilla perfume that drives me crazy, every time you bite your lip when you're concentrating on a difficult problem, every time you argue back when I'm being unreasonable, which is more often than I care to admit, I want to do things that would get me fired faster than I could pack my office. The air in the room feels electric now, charged with tension and possibility. My heart is beating so hard I'm sure he can hear it. Can probably see my pulse jumping in my throat. Everything I thought I knew about our relationship, about him, is crumbling and reforming into something completely different. You're saying you... I trail off, unable to finish the sentence, unable to voice what I think he's telling me. I'm saying I've been half in love with you since your second week here. The words hang between us like a live wire, dangerous and electric. You spilled coffee on yourself during the Morrison presentation. Remember, instead of being embarrassed or flustered, you just laughed it off and made some joke about matching the coffee stains to the brown folders. I'd never seen anyone handle a crisis with such grace and humor. The memory floods back, an incident I'd completely forgotten, written off as just another embarrassing moment in my early days at the company. But apparently Riker remembered. Apparently that moment meant something to him that I never could have imagined. That's why you started being so hard on me. My voice comes out smaller than I intended. That's why I started being impossible, he corrects, stepping even closer until there's barely an inch of space between us. You heard me right. Riker's voice becomes impossibly soft, almost vulnerable, and it's so completely different from his usual commanding tone that I find myself questioning whether I'm hearing him correctly. The man who barks orders in board meetings and reduces junior analysts to tears with a single glare is standing here speaking to me like I'm something fragile and precious. My mouth goes completely dry. Then why do you do it? He runs a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up for the first time since I've known him. The gesture is so uncharacteristically human that it makes my chest ache, because it's the only way I can interact with you without crossing lines I'm not supposed to cross. Because every time you walk into this office wearing that vanilla perfume that drives me absolutely insane, every time you bite your lip when you're concentrating on a difficult problem, every time you argue back when I'm being unreasonable, which is more often than I care to admit, I want to do things that would get me fired and land me in HR hell faster than I could clear out my office. I feel like the ground is shifting beneath my feet, like everything I thought I knew about reality is crumbling around me. This conversation isn't going in any direction I expected or feared. Instead, it's heading somewhere even more terrifying, towards something that might actually be real. The afternoon light streaming through his office windows catches the gold flecks in his dark eyes, and for a moment I see past the polished executive exterior to something raw and uncertain underneath. He looks almost young like this, vulnerable in a way that makes me want to reach out and touch him just to make sure he's real. You're saying you... I trail off, unable to finish the sentence because speaking it out loud would make it real, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that level of reality yet. I'm saying I've been half in love with you since your second week here. The admission hangs heavy in the air between us, loaded with 2 years of suppressed feelings and careful professional distance. You spilled coffee on yourself during the Morrison presentation. Remember, instead of being embarrassed or flustered like anyone else would have been, you just laughed it off and made some joke about matching the coffee stains to the brown folders. I'd never seen anyone handle a crisis with such grace and humor. The memory floods back to me, an incident I'd completely forgotten, written off as just another embarrassing moment in my early days at the company. I remember feeling mortified, sure that I'd ruined my chances of making a good impression. But apparently, Riker saw something entirely different in that moment. Apparently that moment meant something to him that I never could have imagined. That's why you started being so hard on me? My voice comes out smaller than I intended, like a child trying to understand why they're being punished. That's why I started being impossible. He steps closer and I instinctively back up until my shoulders hit the wall behind me. There's nowhere left to retreat, nowhere to hide from the intensity in his gaze. Because every smile, every laugh, every time you tucked your hair behind your ear when you were nervous, made me want you more. And wanting you was the one thing I couldn't allow myself to do. This is insane, I whisper. But even as I say it, pieces start falling into place like a puzzle I didn't know I was solving. Those late nights when he'd find excuses to keep me in the office, working on projects that probably could have waited until morning. The way his criticism always came with detailed suggestions for improvement, like he was personally invested in my success. How he never actually wrote me up or put anything negative in my personnel file despite all his complaints and harsh words. Insane doesn't begin to cover it, He agrees, reaching up slowly to touch my cheek. I should pull away, should tell him to stop, should maintain some semblance of professional boundaries. But I'm frozen, caught between terror and a longing I've been denying for so long that it feels like part of my DNA. I've spent 2 years trying to convince myself that what I felt for you would go away if I just kept my distance. If I just treated you like any other employee instead of someone I wanted to protect and cherish and completely ruin all at the same time. His thumb brushes across my cheekbone and the touch is so gentle it makes my eyes water. When was the last time someone touched me like this? Like I mattered? Like I was worth something more than criticism and indifference? I thought you hated me. I admit, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was the worst employee you'd ever had. You're the best analyst this company has ever seen, he says firmly, his other hand coming up to frame my face. You're brilliant and dedicated and so goddamn beautiful it physically hurts to look at you sometimes. Do you have any idea how many times I've had to excuse myself from meetings because I couldn't concentrate with you in the room? The confession sends heat flooding through my body, pooling low in my stomach in ways I absolutely should not be feeling about my boss. But professional propriety seems like a distant concept when he's looking at me like I'm the answer to questions he's been afraid to ask. Every presentation you've given, every report you've submitted, every time you've challenged my decisions in team meetings, you've been extraordinary. And I've been an absolute bastard to you, because I didn't know how else to handle feeling this way. His honesty is brutal and beautiful and completely overwhelming. I want to believe him, want to trust that this isn't some elaborate power play or cruel joke. But years of self-doubt and professional insecurity don't disappear in a single conversation, no matter how earth-shattering it might be. What happens now? I ask, surprised by how steady my voice sounds when everything inside me feels like chaos. Now we figure out what this is, he says, leaning closer until I can feel his breath against my skin. Now we stop pretending that there isn't something electric between us every time we're in the same room. The space between us has shrunk to almost nothing, and I can see every detail of his face, the slight stubble along his jawline, the tiny scar above his left eyebrow, the way his pupils are dilated despite the bright office lighting. He's so close I could count his eyelashes if I wanted to, so close that all it would take is the smallest movement for our lips to touch. Jamie, he murmurs my name like a prayer. Like a question, like a promise, all rolled into one. And suddenly, I understand that we're standing at the edge of a cliff, and whatever happens next will determine whether we fall or fly. Riker's thumb brushes across my cheek with devastating gentleness. And despite everything, despite the confusion, the fear, the absolute insanity of this entire situation, I find myself leaning into his touch. It feels so wrong on every conceivable level, but my body doesn't seem to care about professional boundaries or power dynamics or the dozen different ways this could destroy both our careers. Tell me to stop, he murmurs, his other hand coming up to frame my face completely. His palms are warm against my skin, steady and sure in a way that makes me feel anchored for the first time in years. Tell me this is wrong and you want me to leave you alone, and I will. I'll transfer departments, find another job if I have to. I'll disappear from your life completely if that's what you need. Just tell me to stop. I open my mouth to do exactly that, to tell him this is madness, that we'll both be destroyed if anyone finds out, that there's no possible future in whatever this is becoming. The rational words are right there on my tongue, ready to restore sanity and professional distance, and all the careful walls I've built around my heart. But what comes out instead surprises us both. I can't. Why not? His voice is barely a whisper now, his face so close to mine that I can feel his breath ghosting across my skin. The question hangs between us like a challenge, like a dare, like the most important test I'll ever take. Because I've been wanting this too. The confession tumbles out before I can stop it. 2 years of suppressed feelings and secret longings spilling into the space between us. God, Riker, you have any idea how many nights I've gone home wondering what it would be like if you touched me, if you kissed me? If you looked at me like I was something precious instead of something that annoyed you beyond belief. Something fundamental shifts in his expression, surprise melting into something darker, more intense, more dangerous. The careful control he always maintains slips just enough for me to see the want underneath, raw and hungry and completely focused on me. You want this? His voice is rough now, strained with the effort of holding himself back. Really want this, not just because you're scared or confused or think it's what I want to hear. I want this so badly it physically hurts. I admit, and saying it out loud feels like jumping off a cliff with no idea if there's water below to catch me. But I'm terrified of what it means. I'm terrified of how this changes everything between us. I'm terrified that you'll realize I'm not worth risking your career over. It means, he says, leaning down until his lips are barely touching mine. The proximity making my knees weak and my pulse race. That we're about to cross a line we can never uncross. It means everything changes from this moment forward, and there's no going back to the way things were. The weight of that truth settles over me like a blanket, heavy and warm and absolutely terrifying. In this moment, I can feel the entire trajectory of my life, balancing on a knife's edge. Whatever choice I make right now will ripple forward through every day that comes after. And if it all goes wrong, I whisper, voicing the fear that's been clawing at my chest since this conversation began. If we try this and it's a disaster, if people find out and we both lose everything, then we'll deal with it together. His lips brush against mine as he speaks. Not quite a kiss, but close enough to send electricity shooting straight through my nervous system. But right now, right here, I need to know something. Do you trust me? The question cuts straight to the heart of everything. Trust. After 2 years of criticism and impossible standards and feeling like I was constantly disappointing him, can I trust that this is real? Can I trust that he won't use this vulnerability against me? Can I trust myself to handle whatever comes next? I should say no. I should be smart about this. Think about consequences. Consider all the ways this could end in absolute disaster. I should remember that he's my boss, that there are policies against this kind of thing, that I could lose not just my job but my entire career if this goes badly. Instead, I hear myself whispering, yes. The word is barely out of my mouth before he's kissing me, and suddenly nothing else matters. Not the office, not the glass walls, not the fact that anyone could walk by and see us. All that exists is the feel of his lips on mine, and the way his hands tangle in my hair like he's afraid I might disappear. The kiss starts gentle, almost hesitant, like he's giving me one last chance to change my mind. But when I respond, kissing him back with all the pent-up longing I've been carrying for 2 years, something unleashes in both of us. His hands tighten in my hair as he deepens the kiss, pressing me back against the wall of his office with a desperation that matches my own. I should be worried about the glass walls that separate his office from the rest of the floor, about someone walking by and seeing us, about security cameras and HR policies and all the rational reasons why this is the worst possible idea. But rational thought has completely abandoned me. All I can focus on is the way he tastes like coffee and mint and something indefinably masculine, the way his body feels pressed against mine, the low groan he makes when I bite his bottom lip. My hands find their way to his shirt, fingers fumbling with the expensive fabric as I try to ground myself in the reality of this moment. He's real, this is real, and for the first time in years I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. When we finally break apart, we're both breathing hard. Riker rests his forehead against mine, his eyes closed like he's trying to memorize this moment, trying to burn it into his memory so completely that it can never be taken away. Jesus, he breathes, his voice rough and shaken. I've wanted to do that for so long. So have I admit, surprised by how steady my voice sounds when everything inside me feels like chaos and electricity and pure wants. He pulls back just enough to look at me, his hands still framing my face, his thumbs brushing across my cheekbones with devastating tenderness. We can't do this here, he finally says, and I can hear the effort it takes for him to be responsible when what we both want is to ignore everything else and give in to this pull between us. Not in the office. The reminder of where we are hits like cold water, bringing reality crashing back around us. We're in his office, in the middle of the workday with an entire floor of our colleagues, just outside these glass walls. Then where? I ask, surprised by my own boldness, by how unwilling I am to let this moment end. Have dinner with me tonight. Riker pulls back just enough to look directly into my eyes, his hands still framing my face like he's afraid I might dissolve if he lets go. Somewhere far away from this building, where we can figure out what this is without worrying about who might see us or what they might think. The invitation hangs in the air between us, loaded with possibility and promise and the very real chance that everything could change forever. This is my out. I could say no, could claim this was just a moment of madness, brought on by stress and proximity and 2 years of unresolved tension. I could walk out of this office and pretend none of this ever happened. But looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there alongside the want, I realize I don't want an out. I want to see where this leads, even if it's straight off a cliff. Riker, if anyone finds out, I start because the responsible part of my brain is still trying to be heard over the chaos of my feelings. They won't, he says with the kind of confidence that built his career. I'll make sure of that. But Jamie, I need you to understand something. After today, after this, I can't go back to pretending I don't feel anything for you. I can't go back to being your asshole boss who treats you like you don't matter. Because now I know that you want this too. The certainty in his voice is both thrilling and terrifying. There's no hesitation, no doubt, just absolute conviction that this is worth whatever risk comes with it. What are you saying? I ask. Though I think I already know the answer. I'm saying that if you walk out of this office right now and pretend this never happened, I'll respect that. I'll find a way to transfer to another department or another company entirely if that's what it takes to make you comfortable. But if you meet me tonight, if you're willing to see where this goes, then you need to know that I'm all in. Completely, utterly, recklessly all in. The intensity in his voice, the raw vulnerability in his eyes, it's almost too much to process. I realize that this isn't just about attraction or curiosity anymore. This is about two people who've been circling each other for years, building tension and connection without ever acknowledging what was happening, finally admitting that there's something real between them, something worth risking everything for. Where? I ask again, and the relief that floods his expression makes my chest tight with emotion I'm not ready to name. Antonio's on 5th Street, 8 o'clock. He steps back, creating professional distance between us again. But his eyes never leave my face. The transition from intimate to businesslike should feel jarring, but somehow it doesn't. Instead, it feels like we're sharing a secret, maintaining a facade for the outside world, while something entirely different burns between us. And Jamie, wear something that makes you feel confident. Tonight, I want to see you as yourself, not as my employee. The way he says it, like there's a version of me he's been waiting to meet. A person beyond the nervous analyst who jumps every time he raises his voice, makes something warm unfurl in my chest. As I reach for the door handle, my legs still unsteady from everything that's happened in the last 20 minutes. He calls my name one more time. Don't overthink this, he says, and there's something almost pleading in his tone. For once in your life, just let yourself want what you want. I walk out of his office on shaky legs, acutely aware that everything has changed. The hallway looks the same. My coworkers are still typing away at their desks. The familiar sounds of office life continue around me, but I feel like I'm seeing it all through new eyes. Tonight I'm going to have dinner with Riker Donovan, not as his subordinate, not as the employee he loves to torment, but as someone he wants, someone he's been wanting for 2 years. The rest of the workday passes in a surreal blur of nervous energy and anticipation. I try to focus on the quarterly report spread across my desk, but the numbers swim before my eyes like meaningless symbols. Every time I catch a glimpse of him through his glass office walls, my stomach does complicated acrobatics that have nothing to do with fear and everything to do with want. Sarah from accounting stops by my desk around 3:30 with questions about the Morrison budget, and I somehow manage to give coherent answers despite the fact that my brain feels like it's been rewired. She doesn't seem to notice anything different about me, which is both a relief and somehow disappointing. I feel like I should be glowing, like the magnitude of what happened should be written across my face for everyone to see. At 4:45, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Looking forward to tonight. The message is simple, professional even, but it makes my heart race like I've just run a marathon. He gave me his personal number. This is really happening. At exactly 5 o'clock, I pack up my things with hands that shake just slightly. Around me, my coworkers are doing the same, gathering purses and briefcases, saying goodbyes, making plans for drinks or dinner or whatever normal people do after work. I wonder if any of them have ever stood on the precipice of something that could change their entire life. The elevator ride down feels endless. I stare at my reflection in the polished steel doors and try to see what Riker sees when he looks at me. The same brown hair that never quite cooperates, the same ordinary face that I've never considered particularly noteworthy. But maybe that's not what he's seeing. Maybe he's seeing something I've never been able to recognize in myself. The evening air is crisp when I step outside, carrying the promise of autumn and change. I have 3 hours to get home, figure out what to wear, and somehow transform myself from the nervous wreck who spilled coffee during the Morrison presentation into someone confident enough to have dinner with the man who's been the center of my professional universe for 2 years. As I walk toward the subway station, I catch my reflection in a storefront window and realize I'm smiling. For the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm not just surviving my life. I'm actually excited about what comes next. Tonight, everything changes. Tonight, I stop running from what I want and finally reach for it instead. The thought terrifies and exhilarates me in equal measure, but as I disappear into the crowd of evening commuters, I know with absolute certainty that I wouldn't change my mind even if I could. This is happening. We're happening. And for the first time in my adult life, that feels like exactly where I'm supposed to be. Antonio's is exactly the kind of place I would never choose for myself. Dimly lit with warm amber lighting, tables draped in crisp white linens, the soft murmur of intimate conversations mixing with the gentle clink of expensive stemware. It's the kind of restaurant where meals cost more than I usually spend on groceries in a month, where every detail has been carefully curated to create an atmosphere of romance and sophistication. I arrive 15 minutes early because nerves have made it impossible to stay in my apartment any longer. I spent 2 hours getting ready, changing clothes 3 times before settling on a navy blue dress shirt and dark jeans that I hope strike the right balance between casual and put together. My reflection in the restaurant's windows shows someone who looks almost confident, though inside I feel like I'm barely holding myself together. The hostess, an elegant woman with silver hair and kind eyes, shows me to a corner table that offers both privacy and a view of the entrance. "Your companion should be along shortly," she says with a knowing smile that makes me wonder if my nervousness is that obvious. I order a glass of wine to calm my nerves and spend the next 10 minutes alternating between checking my phone and watching the door. What if he changes his mind? What if this whole thing was just a moment of madness that he's already regretting? What if he doesn't show up and I have to sit here alone? A reminder of how foolish I was to think someone like Riker Donovan could actually want someone like me. Then he walks in and every doubt evaporates. He's changed out of his office attire into dark jeans and a charcoal gray sweater that hugs his shoulders in ways that should be illegal. His hair is less perfectly styled than usual, like he ran his fingers through it during the drive here. When he spots me across the restaurant, his face breaks into a smile that's so different from any expression I've ever seen him wear at work. Warm and genuine and completely focused on me. "Sorry I'm late," he says as he reaches the table, though he's actually right on time. Traffic was murder getting across town. "You're not late," I assure him, standing to greet him and immediately feeling awkward about whether I should shake his hand or hug him, or just sit back down. The rules of normal social interaction seem to have abandoned me entirely. He solves the dilemma by leaning in and pressing a soft kiss to my cheek, his hand briefly touching my lower back in a gesture that's intimate but not inappropriate for a public restaurant. The contact sends warmth flooding through my entire body. "You look incredible," he murmurs, close enough that only I can hear him. "I've been thinking about seeing you like this all afternoon." "Like what?" I ask as we both sit down. "Relaxed. Happy. Like yourself instead of the version of you that's constantly waiting for me to criticize something." His expression grows serious for a moment. "I hate that I made you feel that way. I hate that I was so terrible at handling my feelings that I made you doubt yourself." The sincerity in his voice makes my chest tight. "You weren't that terrible." He raises an eyebrow and despite everything I find myself laughing. "Okay, you were pretty terrible, I admit. But I understand why now." The waiter appears to take our drink orders and explain the evening's specials, giving us both a moment to settle into this new dynamic. When he leaves, Riker reaches across the table and takes my hand, threading our fingers together like it's the most natural thing in the world. "I have to ask," he says, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "When did you know? When did you realize you felt something too?" The question makes me think back through 2 years of interactions, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when annoyance shifted into something deeper. Remember the Madison Project presentation last spring, when the client was being completely unreasonable about the timeline and you stepped in to defend my projections? He nods, his eyes never leaving my face. That was the first time I saw you as something other than just my difficult boss. You could have thrown me under the bus to keep the client happy, but instead you backed me up, and afterward when you said my analysis was solid, you smiled at me, a real smile, not that corporate mask you usually wear. That's when I started seeing you differently. I remember that day, he says softly. You were so passionate defending your work, so brilliant in how you explained the market factors. I was proud of you and I couldn't hide it. Is that why you were extra harsh with me the next week? Probably, he admits with a rueful laugh. I was terrified of how natural it felt to be proud of you, to want to protect you. It was easier to go back to being an asshole than to deal with what I was feeling. The conversation flows more easily after that. 2 years of professional tension melting away as we talk about everything except work. I learned that he plays piano, that he's terrible at cooking but loves trying new restaurants, that he reads mystery novels to unwind. He learns that I paint watercolors in my spare time, that I'm secretly addicted to terrible reality TV shows, that I've never been outside the country but dream of traveling to Italy someday. We should go, he says when I mention Italy, and the casual way he includes himself in my hypothetical future makes my heart skip. I have a house in Tuscany that I never use. It's just sitting there waiting for someone to appreciate it. You have a house in Tuscany. I try to keep the incredulity out of my voice, but he laughs anyway. Family money, he explains with a slight shrug. Most of it I never touch, but the house is beautiful. I think you'd love it. There's a garden that's perfect for painting, and the sunrise from the terrace is something you have to see to believe. The easy way he talks about including me in his life, sharing his spaces and experiences with me is both thrilling and overwhelming. This morning I was just his employee. Tonight he's talking about taking me to Italy. Dinner arrives, perfectly prepared dishes that taste as incredible as they look, but I barely notice the food. I'm too caught up in watching Riker's face in the candlelight, in the way his eyes crinkle when he laughs at something I've said, in the gentle way he corrects the waiter when the man assumes we're business associates rather than on a date. Actually, Riker says with quiet confidence, this is definitely not business. The waiter's expression shifts to understanding, and he treats us with the kind of attentive service reserved for couples celebrating something special. Which, I suppose we are. As the evening winds down, I realize I don't want it to end. For the first time in my adult life, I feel completely comfortable in my own skin, completely accepted for who I am rather than who I think I should be. Riker has seen me nervous and flustered and completely out of my depth, and instead of finding it off-putting, he seems charmed by it. What happens now? I ask as we walk out of the restaurant together, the cool evening air making me shiver slightly. Now, he says, stopping on the sidewalk and turning to face me fully, I take you home like a gentleman, and tomorrow we figure out how to navigate this at work without anyone suspecting that I'm completely crazy about you. And after that we take it one day at a time. We see where this goes and we don't overthink it. He cups my face in his hands, thumb brushing across my cheek in the gesture that's already becoming familiar. But Jamie, I need you to know something. This isn't just about attraction or curiosity for me. You're not some experiment or temporary distraction. I want to build something real with you, something that lasts. Before I can respond, he's kissing me again, right there on the busy sidewalk with people walking around us and the city lights creating a halo around his dark hair. And for the first time in my life, I don't care who's watching or what they might think. When we break apart, both breathing hard, he rests his forehead against mine. This is just the beginning, he whispers, and I know with absolute certainty that he's right. Everything that happened before tonight, the dating app, the confrontation in his office, the years of professional tension, it was all just prologue. The real story is just starting, and I can't wait to see how it ends.